The DIESOL podcast,
Digital integration in English as a second or other language.
episode 47, Summer of SAMR, Redefinition.
Welcome to DIESOL. This is episode 47. We are your hosts. I am Brent Warner.
And I'm Michelle Reyes.
Good morning.
We're coming to the end of the summer.
Yeah.
Or it's midsummer. I mean,
we're at the end. This is
July.
this is our episode, SAMRR. Yeah, how are you doing, Michelle?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm tired. Week 3 of face-to-face teaching. So it's still a transition.
Yes.
How about you? How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm coming up on my last week of classes for the summer, and then I'll get a little vacation. I'm going to go up to Washington, and so I'm looking forward to that. But Michelle, we can't skip. It was your birthday. Happy birthday.
I thought you forgot my birthday.
Happy
what are you talking about? You forgot my birthday.
I know, I totally forgot.
Don't try to make it up to me now.
No, now it's public. This is when everybody listens. What'd you do for your birthday?
Well, I got surprise Zoom calls from friends, which was interesting.
Oh boy, jeez, I did not do that either.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
You're a pretty crummy friend, Brent.
Seriously,
that's it.
seriously.
I'm severing ties.
So I'm going to justify just because I have everybody's birthday comes up on my calendar, and then yours didn't come up, and I was like, well, it's not on there. And actually it is totally my fault. But the reason why it didn't come up is because the way my calendar work, I use Fantastical, and it slides up past the birthday notifications if there's nothing happening on that day. And your birthday was Sunday, right? And so I didn't have anything scheduled for Sunday, so it just skipped me right to Monday, and I'm like, so I'm really sorry, because I should put it actually physically visible.
I'm kidding.
Happy birthday!
Thank
Did you get any nice presents?
Well, the best part was getting, people these days send things through Amazon, especially, or just from out of state. I kept receiving gifts. I think I've received something every single day.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I love that. People always apologize. I'm sorry, I'm late. It's like, no, that's like the best thing. You come home and there's a gift for you, and you're like, oh, you thought of me.
Yeah, you're totally going to get something from me within the next couple days too. So keep your eye peeled.
Last year, you got me some cool books. I think you got me I'm blanking out. It's the internet book, because internet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love that book. So yeah,
that was fun.
So anyway, your birthday's also coming up.
Yeah, it is coming up. I'll be another year older, and you know how we feel about that.
So that's why you forgot. That's why you forgot my birthday, because you was old.
So I have to say, I found this website called International Phonetical Alphabet.org, and it has a whole thing of IPA sounds and an IPA chart, and you can just click on the different IPA symbols, and it'll play that sound for you. But it's got one that's just isolated to different vowels, and I've just been laughing all day long just clicking on it.
That sounds like beatboxing. But you know what's funny is the teacher next door to me is actually teaching a phonetics class, and we've had the door open all week because our AC is not functioning properly, and so
all the students
kept
are going,
saying, "What's going on over there?" Yes,
getting that schwa sound
it's a phonetics
down.
Class. Yeah. It's a phonetics class.
Yeah, that'll happen. So last thing, we'll get, we're wasting time, but we're going to get into this. It is August, Michelle, and so there is a 5th Monday this month, and we haven't done a Drinks with DIESOL, I think, for almost a year now, because we skipped one or two. So possibly Drinks with DIESOL. I don't know how you feel about it. I haven't asked you yet, but
possibly because I may be traveling overseas, and that's going to fall at the end of the month when I'll be likely moving living location. So we'll play it by ear.
Okay, we'll figure it out. So pay attention to the Twitter.
If we do have drinks with Diesel, that needs to be the sound when people get the answer wrong. Okay. My stump the teacher grammar trivia.
All right. We're stretching things out because we're going to have a little bit of a shorter episode today as we're talking about redefinition. And I think we should get over to the business.
All right. So as a reminder, there's a few episodes that actually go together in this series. It helps you to get a little bit more of a background. Episode 28, it was the SD standards. Episode 30, the tech standards, the TESOL tech standards. And then the previous two episodes, episode 43, that was Summer of SAMR substitution, and then episode 45, Summer of SAMR modification. So if you haven't had the chance to listen, go ahead and listen to those. It'll give you kind of a background to our last episode of Summer of SAMR.
Yeah. And so we're not going to spend a ton of time reviewing all of those things because they're kind of meant to go all together as like a little series of episodes, especially these last three. So 43, 45, and this one 47. But just as a reminder, we did talk about this idea. So we've said SA, substitution, augmentation are kind of this idea of enhancement, right? Like enhancing what can already be done. And then M and R, modification, and today we're talking about redefinition, are this idea of transformation, where it's like you start getting into things that could not have been done before without technology. And so so this is kind of what we wanted to look at here, and make sure that people kind of keep that mindset there where it's like, okay, we're kind of, it moves from one way to the other. It sways, it shifts around, and it's not as locked down and isolated as one step to the next. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but let's jump into redefinition. So Esol, how would you define redefinition?
So redefinition is an entirely different product or experience that's the result of incorporating a real audience or real life problem solving. This would not ever be possible in the traditional model. So as you said, this is completely transformational. And it wouldn't be possible without the tech tool. Yeah.
So some of the things that you might think about is like, one thing that I think about when I'm looking at this level is I'm like, well, cell phones make things redefined, right? So if we kind of look back at our traditional experience, I think this is becoming, this might disappear in the future where people are like, oh, I'm used to teaching without any technology, right? In the next 10 years or whatever it is, right? There's going to be a shift because all the teachers coming in are like, I've always had tech, right? But there are still quite a lot of teachers out there who are like, oh, okay, now if I cell phones, right, allow us the opportunities to not be tethered to anything as we're doing our learning, right? So we can go out, we can do our field trip and engage in the learning at the same time as we're interacting with other people and as we're putting together our projects, and there's all sorts of parts to it. So that's kind of one way, and we'll get into the tools and the details in a minute. But I really liked what Tan Nguyen said about this too. The way that he phrased this, I thought was useful to understand, which he said on his page, and we'll link to this into the show notes. He said, the distinguishing feature of redefinition is that technology encourages students to engage with real life problems and interact with authentic audiences. So for me, I kind of shifted. I have my own way of saying that, which is I like to think of when you get to the R level, I like to think of language acquisition as the byproduct of high engagement, meaningful activities. And so you're not really focused on like, hey, here's a language skill. Here's the grammar point that we're going to be talking about. Here's the vocabulary words that you're going to be using. But rather almost more like natural language acquisition, where it's part of what you're doing. And then you need to have that language in order to be able to get through the process. And so you're going to be determined or motivated to figure out what that is or how to say it. But the assignment is not to learn how to,
create that portfolio at the end.
Yeah. And it's not like, well, it's not even, it's like, it's not the, insert a noun clause here, but it's like, oh, okay, how are other people doing this? How am I going to convey this information that needs to be in here into my other and hopefully more meaningful product, or meaning the final project that the students are working on, or whatever that assignment happens to be. And we'll talk about a few of those as potential things. And then Esol, one other thing that I wanted to kind of remind when we're talking about this is that Puentedora, who we talked about originally, he kind of came up with the SAMR model, but his original model was a ladder, right? And we talked about this last time, that it's really, I think that's kind of does a disservice to teachers and to students to think of it like a ladder. And we shared that before, but I'd like to kind of think of it more like a grid, and even a cross grid where the ideas go from one to the other. So that's kind of how we designed the art for the art on the show notes for this one, to kind of show the SAMR and that grid, and then they kind of point to different directions depending on what you're trying to do. You might think of it like a spectrum or a scale. And like, if you're thinking of kind of a scale, it's like, okay, being heavier or being lighter doesn't mean that's a good thing or that's a bad thing. It just means that that's at a different place and you're using one thing in a different way, or whatever that is. So, and then finally, just kind of thinking of this idea that SAMR is more of a mindset than a definition, right? And you're kind of going, okay, well, how are we doing this? Am I pushing in boundaries? Is this going to be valuable? Does doing this thing outside of the traditional model make a difference and actually help our students go for those things? And so those are kind of, just some of the final throwing out of ideas of philosophical approaches to SAMR. I don't know if you have anything to add to that or not.
No, I actually really love that SAMR is a mindset, not a definition. I love that. I think that's that's how we should start all of the next episodes on SAMR. Remember that? SAMR is a mindset.
There's a mindset. If we do a workshop, you might hear that. It'll come up on a slide or something like that. All right. So these are some of the things. When we come back from this little transition, we will share some potential tools and some ways to think about all of this. All right, Esol, I think we've talked about this website before, listennotes.com, but I found DIESOL on there, and I can't remember. It looks totally different, but I did find that we are in the top 3% of globally ranked podcasts, which, how does that sound to you?
That's awesome. We are amazing.
Yeah, we're totally amazing.
Globally ranked top 3.
You obviously sound very excited about it. So what I was, it's kind of silliness. I don't know what that means, to tell the truth, but it's kind of fun to see that. And that's like a little fake statistic. What does Mark Twain say? There's lies, damn lies, and statistics. So the top 3% globally ranked. All right. So if you guys are interested in supporting, we'll take it. We'll take whatever we can get. So if you like to support the show, please feel free to give us a review on your podcatcher of choice. I think, Esol, what's happening, we are getting some 5-star reviews, which is really cool, but people aren't writing anything up. And so next stage, write something up if you are able to. If you want to support financially, monetarily, you can send us Patreon. You can get into the Patreon at the $1, the $3, or the $6 mark. That's all available on the show notes and all those types of things. So thank you so much, and we're happy. People are listening. We've even during the summertime. A few
extra stuff in there.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting towards things.
Yeah,
it's been fun.
We're getting there, guys.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into tools. And as a reminder, a tool is not in any specific level of SAMR. A tool can actually accomplish these steps depending on the goal of the activity.
That's right. So let's start talking about reading a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I like for reading, and I went to this conference over the summer, was the Hypothesis. There was like basically an annotation conference, and I jumped into a few different sessions there. Hypothesis is HYPOTHES.IS. And basically what it is collaborative annotation and sharing. And so some of my colleagues in the English department use this, and I've seen them do some pretty cool stuff. But basically what happens is you upload like a PDF or something, but it becomes a fully annotated thing. So it creates columns kind of like inside of Google Docs, right? Where you click and leave a little comment, but you can actually go in and do entire like assignment parts in there and have all of the students responding to one prompt that you put in, and all students can log in and then go see and read at the same time. And then when they go through, then they can respond to that part, and they can also look at each other's comments on it. And so something like this is a pretty heavy level annotation, and also the opportunities for them to share it out. So I like this as a kind of a way of like, this is totally different.
So, Brent, I have a question because I've never heard of that. So how is it, and I'm just curious about the tool. Why would I want to use that as opposed to Google Docs? What's the difference? Or is that just another avenue for something like that?
I think
a shared document?
Yeah, it's uploading a PDF more. So if you have like a PDF that you're working with, but it's also because of the way that it works, and from my understanding, and I haven't gotten a ton into it, but it isolates all the information separately per comment. And so you can actually say like, hey, here's my question. Now only on that question, I want to see all the students' responses in clear and an organized way. And so it's built, you know, like with Google, I feel like you kind of do shorter responses on the side there. Like you kind of leave a couple sentences. I mean, you like can do more, little comments, but this is really can be like fully thought out ideas. You know, you want to flesh all of your processes out and responses, and you can do all sorts of little different things inside of there. So, so I think it's just if you're looking to take it to kind of the next level, and if you're, especially if your documents that you're using are PDFs, and like, you know, that whole conversion from PDF to Google Docs is a pain in the butt. So so I could see definitely where that goes. And then it is free from my understanding. And then there's paid higher versions, but that you don't necessarily need, but it's definitely worth checking out. So Hypothesis is out there.
Yeah, that actually does sound transformational.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah. And so for writing, of course, we're back again to Google Docs. And this is an example of a tool that can fall into any of those categories, right, within SUMMER. And in Redefinition, you could use Google Docs with multimedia embedded.
Yeah.
And then you could have everything all in one doc, but that would not be possible the traditional way. You can also now share that out for responses.
Yeah. Let's go back to the multimedia embeds, because they just announced a bunch of stuff inside of there. And like before, it's like you would link to things and whatever, but now you can actually, like, when you click on it, if you put like a YouTube video or something in there, it's like right there, and it plays it inside of the Google Doc. Yeah,
I know.
It's really nice. And so like, oh, all these little features that they're adding onto it. And so there's a lot of those cool things that you can do with multimedia embeds. And I think you can even pull in now Google Sheets like directly into it, and all these,
you can do that.
So there's like
really nice.
So those are like cool features that are really useful depending on what you're trying to get done. And then also, as you're saying here, the sharing it out out is just amazing, because you can just say, hey world, here's my work, right? I mean, that's like a blog, right? So like you have a blog, but your Google Doc as a blog, and it's just like, here's a single thing for anybody to go look at. Maybe you open up for them to leave comments on. Maybe you open it up for people to edit and give feedback in editing. One of the things we've been doing, you know, is when students are coming to teachers in our writing lab, you know, they're showing it and they're saying, hey, here's where my editing needs, you know, this is what I'm trying to do with my editing. And you can look at it at the same time I'm looking at it. We're talking to each other through all of this. And so there's just tons of cool stuff you can do. And also, Esol, I know I'm going crazy because of Google's all their new recent announcements, but also I think you can do Google Meets directly inside of Google Docs now. Is that right?
You know,
or it's
I'm
coming?
such a terrible ambassador. Since I'm not using Google Meet at work or for, for face for distance learning, they have had a lot of stuff happening with Google Meet, but I would not be the person to ask right now. So I'd have to check back. And but I wouldn't doubt if you can't just immediately schedule something through there. I think you might be right, where you can just, if you have a document and you've shared that with somebody, you might be able to schedule the Google Meet immediately.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can. And then the cool thing is, and I was just thinking about it, you mentioned this, but I was out recently. I was out sick, and my students had done their essays on Google Docs, and I'd given them the feedback already. So the assignment while I was out was to work on the feedback. So the instructor that was there, who was also online somewhere else, was able to take a look at the feedback and then help. And so again, like that, was hopefully pretty seamless from what I heard. But again, I didn't have to go ahead and explain, the instructor could do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. So from the teacher's perspective, that's absolutely redefinition and highly transformational. So, all right. So next up is listening. There's tons of cool stuff you can do with listening, of course. One of these is listening to media with embedded comprehension questions. So, for example, Play Pause It or Edpuzzle, where you're actually playing this audio through and you're pausing it, and then the questions come up, right? So you could do this as a video, for example, but it could be like, hey, here's the video. Listen in on what they're saying. As a teacher, you could pre-record it and just into a black screen or whatever, and you could plug it right into one of these response systems. So Edpuzzle, Play Pause It, like you link in the media source, and then you just say, at this point, I want it to ask a multiple choice question. At this point, I want students to have a little discussion. At this point, I want them to give a short paragraph response or whatever it is. And so that type of stuff just never existed before, right? Like, can you imagine? Like, I mean, we would have to, if you go way back in the day, you'd be playing a tape originally or a CD, right? And then you'd pause the CD and you'd hope it wouldn't spin for too long, or you'd stop this tape and you hope the tape wouldn't break, right? All those types of things. And now it's like, not only are they responding right in there, but then you can collect all of the answers immediately. And if you're in class, you can even project their answers up and say, like, let's look at what you guys are doing right now. I mean, that type of stuff is unbelievable. And like, I think some of us are starting to take that stuff for granted, but it's like so powerful. It makes such a
and
difference.
then, I mean, I'd heard of Edpuzzle since before the pandemic. It's been around, but I didn't actually get to play with it until very recently with my TOEFL class. And I'd wanted them to watch a documentary, but I wanted them to watch at their pace. And then they had questions. And of course, there's so many teachers who've been gracious enough to share quality work that they've done. So I didn't have to reinvent everything. And I actually, pulled some of their questions. And then, as you said, I was able to then the next day look at their answers. And I had told the students, we're going to take a look to see how concise, how clear, and how complete your answers were. And then we're going to vote on them, right? And so we've done that before with other apps like Socrative and stuff like this. But immediately we were able to also go to the segment of the documentary and now take a look at it again together and then evaluate responses, which is, it would have taken a long time to have done that through paper.
Yeah, absolutely.
We wouldn't have time. We would have to cut out that activity.
You'd be like, sorry guys, I lost this paper on the way to work today. All right. So another one is for listening is mystery Skype, right? If you're working, all ages really kind of like this. It's pretty popular with like the K-6 crowd a lot, but like you can reach out to other teachers and anywhere in the world and have people talking to each other and asking yes/no questions or asking different types of questions, so they can listen to each other speaking and giving the answers, and they can speak to each other, speak to people in different parts of the states or different parts of the world, and kind of try and figure out where they are specifically. There's lots of different ways that you can use mystery Skype, but like, hey, I'm just going to call up another classroom in some other part of the world and start talking and listening to them and hearing what they have to say. That is big time different, right? Like I remember when I was a kid, did you guys have pen pals when you were a kid?
I didn't have them as, I mean, I had my own pen pals later, but not in a classroom. And I always wanted one because I had heard of teachers
the pen pal
doing
programs.
that.
Yeah, we did this, and so it was like we would
that's
write
cool.
back and forth when I was like, I think I was like in third grade or something like that, but you know, write back and forth and like over the course of the semester, and then finally we did this day, and this was all in district, you know, so it was only like they were only like 15 minutes away, but like we went to a park and like we're like, who is that person? I don't know, like I've only seen their writing. We weren't sending pictures or anything, so it was just like, you know, that would have been way prohibitive back then, is to send a picture. It's like, no, you can't you can't take a picture and develop the film and then send it to a person. You know, like there's no way the teachers are going to do all that. But like now you can just go bink and look at them on the screen, and like, and you're like anywhere in the world. Like it doesn't have to be someone that we're going to bus over and meet them for 30 minutes for lunch or something one day at the end of the semester. It's just such a cool thing. So the listening skills on there, you can build a lot with all of that.
And finally, for speaking, one of our favorites that we've mentioned before as well many times, Adobe Spark, right? Adobe Spark. Here I've used mostly what is it? The one with the images.
Yeah, Post.
Oh my gosh. Post. Why do I always forget? I think they're all just called Spark
now,
now,
right? They're all Spark now, yeah. They're all they used to be distinguished, and now they're all just one part of the big thing.
They're just part of the suite. The Adobe Spark suite, the Adobe Spark Post, and then Spark Video. You can recreate a presentation until you're satisfied with the quality of that, right? And that in itself is going to require repetition that's just built in. It's going to be organic, and then students have this product that they've built that they are tied to, connected to, have maybe more pride in sharing, and then they've participated in the creation process. And so that's just more valuable for them, right? I think that just creates something that they're proud of.
Yeah, for sure.
In addition to that, with all of that, you end up as a teacher having a collection of different samples. As a student, you're able to also maybe save samples that are other students' presentations, or if it's not a presentation, let's say you're building posts on Spark on idioms, or ways to use noun clauses, or ways to convey logical fallacies, you know, with a picture, all of that. And now you've built a library of study material. That was not, you know, you would throw away things because you didn't want to file them for years. So yeah, Adobe Spark is just amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So much there.
So yeah, I love it. I'm doing a cool project. I think it's fun with my students. They're doing like a local history. They're figuring out something local in the area and learning about where they live a little bit. And since we live in kind of Orange County, a lot of so a lot of my students kind of have this, there's nothing here, right? It's just houses and there's nothing. And I'm like, oh, well, let's take a little look deeper down. And they're finding all these cool things to like talk about and to share about in this history of local places and all these things. And so they're doing presentations through Spark talking about whatever area of local history they might be interested in. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that comes out.
Cool.
Other things with speaking, Flipgrid with screen sharing, right? You know, they can just talk through ideas. They can work through how to do things on the computer. They can explain ideas through, and they can make that all publicly available and get responses to if they like to, depending on the settings that they want to set up for that.
Right.
So Flipgrid, of course, and then of course we can't go without saying podcasts, right? So creating podcasts with your class, like there's just so much cool stuff. My students have made some really cool podcasts this semester, and they're coming up with interesting ideas, and they're figuring out how to format, and they're spending the time talking back and forth with each other and figuring out that language process. And you know, I think I've probably said this 100 times on this show, but the biggest thing for me is not the actual product, but it's the production of the product, right? And so it's like them going in and figuring out with each other how they want to organize it and how they're going to use the tech to make it work and how they're going to get it figured out and all of those types of things. It's like, oh, you guys are spending so much time using English to negotiate with each other and figure out the meaning.
Problem solving and working collaboratively and co-constructing meaning and all that that good stuff, right? It's happening organically because, as you said, they're negotiating language in an authentic way through solving a problem. And then, of course, you get the pretty thing at the end, which is a podcast.
Right.
But the process is just so valuable.
Right. And so that's kind of what I'm getting back to, that idea of saying language acquisition is the byproduct of high engagement, meaningful activities for them, because that's what they're doing. They're not really thinking that much about their English as they're doing all those little side steps. They have to use English and they have to realize that they use it, but they don't think, oh, this is part of the thing that I am studying right now, and therefore I must make, they're just trying to get it and get that communication through, which is so cool. So those are kind of some of the things that you can look at for our, now this is a very, very brief overview, and there's just so much more. And I would love to hear from other people what you guys are thinking about, people who are listening in, how you're maybe adjusting your tools to go through different levels of SAMR, how you think maybe you could definitely say, hey, Brent and Michelle, you guys are wrong. This should be this and that should be that. And it's cool because I think there's different ways to think about all of this. And so I would love to hear, hopefully if you guys can send us some messages on tweets or leave some feedback on the show notes for us. The comments are open there. So let us know, how are you using the SAMR model and how is it affecting the way that you're approaching your classes?
Yeah, you're all still listening to us, right? Let us know.
They're here. Let us know.
All right, it is time for our fun finds, and today I have an app.
What a surprise.
I think I've had apps, or back to tech. So, of course, Brent, as you know, I'm constantly traveling. I've been to Colombia this year, and I'm likely going to be traveling again. And I found this app. I found this app called Packer app. It's Packr, Packer. And I used it before. If you're planning a long trip, and I used to have paper lists and then even lists on my notes app, but this already puts everything together. If you're going on a business trip, if you're going on vacation, you just select the type of trip you're taking and it gives you a template.
Really?
And then,
does it tell you like how many pairs of underwear you should bring into your... Oh, okay.
Yes. And then
do you trust it, or are you like, no, I'm going to do my laundry halfway through?
No, I add like 10 more.
Oh, you add extras?
Because you can never take too many. Socks and underwear you can never have too many of. And
okay, so it builds it out for you though.
And you pick the dates, it'll tell you the weather that's expected. And so you can actually, it'll adjust according to your location. So that's pretty neat. And I don't have to make my own list from scratch. It's already kind of there. And the free version does enough that you don't need to get the paid version. But if you're a frequent traveler, you'll probably want to spend, I think it's a couple $, which I probably will end up doing because I want to support them.
Cool. Well, I'm going on my trip soon, so I'll check that out and add it in. And,
check it out.
Figure myself out.
Let me know what you think.
Awesome. All right, so mine is a television show called Snowfall. This is on Hulu. It's part of FX, I think. If you ever watched The Wire, a lot of people loved The Wire, and I love The Wire too. It was great. This is kind of like the West Coast 80s version of The Wire. It's really interesting. It's all about the cocaine and the crack cocaine epidemic in like South Central Los Angeles. But it's all talking about how the CIA was importing cocaine from South and Central America, and how they were supporting all of the Nicaraguan all the different
Are you outing people here?
Oh no! This is public information. Oh shoot! I don't know. I hope you're like, who's listening? This is a television show. You can see all this stuff. So all of this stuff is just so interesting, and it's kind of cool. It gets into all these dynamics of how the drugs started getting spread out and all these things, and it's just like, it's fascinating. It's really well done. Yeah, and it's drama, so it's like there's like all this dramatic stuff going on inside at the same time. It's because it's fictionalized and things, but it's
for some reason I thought it was a documentary.
No. It's a based on truth fiction. And it deals with like different aspects. So it's like the CIA group, the the different groups out there, so that we're kind of dealing with and becoming drug dealers and all these different things, and like how it's they even get pretty straightforward things that they wouldn't have said back then, but they're like basically talking about how it's like directly meant to be a racist program and and break into all these things. So
2021.
Yeah, so they're speaking a little bit more clearly at this point about what was going on there. So,
Snowfall. I'll have to check it out.
It's definitely worth it. It's a great show. So, Snowfall, FX and or Hulu.
All right, it is time for our wrap up. Thank you so much for listening to this show. Remember, as always, you could win a one-of-a-kind Diesel pin by leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts, which we don't have enough of right now. A written review, right?
Yeah, we'll get them.
New ones,
they'll show up
ones.
at some point.
Yeah. If you're giving us a shout out any other way, feel free to tag us on social media so that we know that you are sending us a shout out.
If you're on Patreon, and if you want to support us on Patreon, that would be welcome. We're there. You can find us on diesel.org/Patreon or patreon.com/diesel, I think, one way or the other. We still have the Clubhouse. We haven't jumped in a little bit over the summer. We kind of slowed down, and we'll take a look at that again, but it's still there. Show notes. If you want show notes and other episodes, check us out. The show notes for this episode are at diesel.org/47, the number 47. And of course, you can listen on voiceed.ca. You can find us on Twitter. The show is at DieselPod, and I am at Brent G. Warner.
And you can find me on Twitter as well. Wait.
Yeah. Did you stop using Twitter?
I stopped using Twitter for a while. No, you can find me, Esol, at Pixie_Pixie. That's IXY_PIXY. And yeah, I'm there. I'm still there. I still read things. I just haven't posted as often, but I'm still there. So if you message me, I will read it.
What, are you going to respond to people if they message you?
I don't know.
You will.
Why don't you message me first and then I'll see.
Send her a message saying happy birthday, happy belated birthday.
Oh, yeah.
In Elvish, thank you is Ni Lasui. So, Ni Lasui for tuning in to the Diesel podcast. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.